guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful rancy room for all things Formula One. The Austrian Grand Prix has come to a close. Oh, that was a spicy race, wasn't it? Oh dear. We've got plenty of things to sink our teeth into this weekend. We had some fantastic performances up and down the field. We had some incredibly lacklustre ones as well. And maybe, just maybe, by the end of this episode, one driver will be getting disqualified. Find out who that is. It's all to come. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their overall race weekend's performance. And I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes an offer for some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. As this was a sprint race format, the new series comes into play where I award drivers up to an additional 3 points based on what they did in the sprint. It's not crucial, I just think it's something that needs to be added, but the main talking point as always will be about the main Grand Prix itself. So let's take a look at the current Crawl Room standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is going into this episode. There might be some changes. That's all I'm going to say. There's plenty to dig his teeth into. There's plenty of performances to praise and plenty of drivers to slate as well. So we're going to get into that very, very soon. The constructor standings on the screen as well for you. Have a look and see again where your favourite team is. This week I will be manipulating this somewhat. This has got free reign separate from the actual championship itself. However, whatever the drivers score happens in the teams, but I can manipulate the teams somewhat to score bonus points or take points off, so all that will be revealed as well. So without further ado then, shall we kick things off with the winner? I think we shall. It was Max No, it wasn't. It was George of the Russell. Watch out for that win. Here he is, picking up the victory. What a stunning effort, George of the Russell. You succulent bitch. Unbelievable stuff. I cannot believe he took victory there. He was on course for a podium anyway, which is a fantastic achievement in that Mercedes car. They've clearly brought updates that have worked. They're getting themselves in the fight and in the mix with the Ferraris and beating them now. And this weekend was no exception. Was running around in third place, a solid qualifying as well. Let's not forget that. And the race itself, third, quite happy, 15 seconds behind the two leaders, but I'm happy with that, don't worry about it. We'll net a podium here, lads, that's a good result. Oh, what's that? The title rivals at the front of the field have decided to have a come-ins together after trying to kill each other 4 times prior anyway. Okay, they've both got punctures. I'm going to swoop around the outside of the pair here. Here we go, while they limped it back to the pit lane. George of the Russell took the lead and took a stunning victory. It was well deserved and well earned, and people are going to say, yeah, but he looked into it. It was driving well anyway. I have been very critical of George of the Russell this season so far, especially in certain races. This race weekend, it was doing okay, it was doing solid, picked up points in the sprint, what more could he do? And in the race itself was on course for a podium. You think Lando and Max are in a field of their own this season. They're the two title rivals, so to speak. And they came to blows. George Russell was there to pick up the pieces. That's a fantastic effort. It's like the lower half of the grid, isn't it? You know, you're sort of scraping over 11th place if all the top 5 teams have a good weekend. But when one doesn't, they pick up the point, and that's the crucial thing. George was in the right place at the right time, thanks to a good strategy and good pace in the car. It's a perfect 10 to George of the Russell from me. It's no less, no more. It is a solid weekend and a very well done to George of the Russell. Well done. Good effort. Well done. I'm thrilled. I am thrilled. 10 points to George. Second place we come to Oscar Pastry. What's your favourite pastry? Well, apparently there's such thing as a faux nut. Did I get that right? Which is like flaky pastry like a donut. Might have got that wrong, but someone in the comments section put that for the last week's race. So have I ever had a faux nut? No, I haven't. I still haven't found one, but I will try one day, I am sure. Oscar Pastry, though, talking about his race itself. Track limits again in qualifying, isn't it? Not good, I'm afraid. He thinks they were harsh. Well, I'm sorry, but track limits have always been track limits. I don't care if there's a strip of gravel now to help combat it. That's fine, it's done its job. But you still went over track limits. I don't care if you picked a bit of gravel up. You still you still went over track limits. That's that. So for the second weekend running, he had a poor qualifying in the main race on Saturday. The sprint race itself was very good, very exciting for the first 4-5 laps, till about lap 7, wasn't it? Then it died a death. But Oscar Piastri got the better of his teammate there, Lando, in the sprint qualifying. The race itself, a good effort, a good recovery. It was on course for a fifth place finish, wasn't he, when the actual contact happened ahead, which would have netted him into P3. Then after the virtual safety car ended to pick up bits of tyre and bits of car that had strewn from Max's and Lando Norris's car, he ended up catching up to the back of Carlos Sainz, who was on older tyres and just didn't have the pace at all. Got past him and got himself into second place. So well done to Oscar Piastri. Great effort, great job. Recovered and picked up the pieces after his teammate Lando binned it and dropped all the points. At least he recovered well to secure 18 points for that team. For Oscar Piastri, it's going to be a solid 7. A solid 7 to Oscar Piastri, because again, qualifying was not good enough. You know, 2 weekends in a row where track limits have been an issue. We know what track limits are. It's not new this season. It was implemented last season as well. 4 wheels over the white lines. You can't do it. You can't do it. So I am in full agreement with him taking his lap time off him. And that cost him in the race. He could have won it without that track limits infringement easily. But that's that. As it's a sprint race as well, I do award him 1 additional point. That is 8 points total for Piastri. I do think his sprint race format race itself was actually worth a point, because it was a good move on his teammate and he did provide some exciting battles in that top 3 position. But yeah, nothing other than that. So a total of 8 points to Oscar Piastri after what has been an encouraging race weekend, but again, track limits creeping in. In third place, we come to Carlos Sainz, smooth operator, smooth operator. Well done, Carlos Sainz, picking up third place and securing himself and the team 15 points. Well done to him, and well done to Carlos Sainz. An encouraging weekend this weekend. Team orders, not team orders as such, but a little bit of bickering behind the scenes between Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz once again over the radio about strategy and things. Which sort of happened in the sprint, didn't they, mainly? But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Wasn't as much as it was in Spain. And it's never personally been over the limit for me. It's just always been like, well, Carlos Sainz got a point to prove. He's out of Ferrari after no fault of his own. So, you know, I can understand it to a certain extent. The race itself, of course, again, was looking for a solid P4 position there. The dramas and dramatics happened up ahead. He's on for P2, but the tyre life and the pace of that Ferrari compared to that McLaren in that final stint on a lighter fuel load, that McLaren came alive, didn't it? Not just for Lando, but for Oscar Piastri as well. And he swooped himself around and got a stunning position there. He went down the outside, didn't he, Oscar? It was a good move. Either way, stunning effort, great performance by Carlos Sainz. P3, best he could have really done when you compare it to others. The Mercedes seem to be better than the Ferraris now, which is concerning, because you know, Mercedes have been P nowhere for a lot of times towards, well, pretty much all of last season, except an odd race. This season now, the upgrades have come, they're making their way forward. Ferrari seem to have stalled. But Carlos Sainz, a good effort nonetheless by him. 9 points. 9 points to Carlos Sainz for what has been a good effort, a good drive, a solid weekend, and plenty of points. In fourth place, we come to Lewis Hamilton in the second of the Mercedes. Yeah, it's been a bit on and off, hasn't it? Been blowing hot and cold this weekend for Hamilton. Looked at the pace in practice, didn't they? They were looking like the Mercedes were going to do something really special this weekend. But then as it got into the main bulk of it and they got into the important bits of qualifying, it didn't quite work out. Hamilton, he didn't have the best of qualifyings, picked up a few points in the sprint, again, but nothing overly serious or dramatic. The race itself, he was running around P6, wasn't it? And it was going to be P6. He's fighting with Oscar in the opening stages of the race, but lost out to him on track on merit, and then had a 5-second time penalty for crossing the white line on pit entry, which is a no-no now. And that rule, of course, was brought in for Lewis Hamilton specifically after he decided a few years ago he was going to drive over the grass here, there and everywhere and never got penalised for it. I just remember Hockenheim, when it was in, out. He was just bouncing across the fucking grass like, oh my God. Anyway, yeah, so he picked up a 5-second time penalty, which was unfortunate. You know, the car stepped out on old tyres. But again, you're pushing to get into the pits to lose the least amount of time possible. So the 5-second time penalty was fair. That put him into a lowly 6th place. Finished here in P4 as a result of the contact that happened up ahead. For Lewis Hamilton, I'm going to give him a solid 7. solid 7 to Lewis Hamilton. Not on the podium when his teammate was, and obviously then Russell inherited the win. Bit of a weird one by Hamilton. Looked to have the pace in Friday, but it just didn't come together. That's that. 7 to Lewis Hamilton. In 5th place. Oh God, I can't wait for the hate. It's Max Verstappen.
When I entered Formula 1, I was the 3rd youngest to ever start a race. Sadly, that's about the only good statistic I've got.
And there we have it. And of the week, Esteban Tuero. Of the week too, Max Verstappen. And not just that, he's getting minus 10 points and knocked off the cruel room as well. He's having 10 points knocked off of his championship fight in the cruel room because that was disgusting. Both of them drove like prats, but we're talking about Max Verstappen right now, and I don't care about the hate in the comments. You know, I'm a genuine neutral fan of Formula 1. I do have my favourites. I like Lando. I like Haas. Haas are my favourite team, you know, but yeah, for the most part, this has just been one exciting race to watch. I saw the pair of them drive like absolute idiots. You know, some of the moaning that Lando made about Max weaving was borderline just like, oh, shut up, Lando, you know, you're moaning for the sake of moaning here. But then he was genuinely squeezing him at times where it shouldn't have been squeezed. You know, Lando had made a legitimate move, and then Max was always reacting to what Lando was doing. He was always like, well, Lando's gone there, I'm going there now. And it was very reminiscent of what we saw in that 2017 period of him and 2016 period in the Red Bull and in the Toro Rosso, where he was closing doors on people that shouldn't have really been shut at times, and it was that immaturity that sunk in. He was frustrated with the slow pit stop that he had. Oh, brilliant, thanks guys. Like, he didn't need to get het up about it. That's why he accrued a 6.5 second lead, so he could have a slow pit stop and still come out ahead. Lando did catch up in that scenario, yeah, but then he wouldn't switch the tyres on correctly. He was struggling, he locked up, he went wide. That's why Lando caught him up. He was frustrated about the slow stop, and he didn't need to be. There did look to be a couple of car issues niggling in as well. They were talking about different settings and strategies. I get that. But Max, there's no need to do what you did. He came over. Lando was there legitimately round the outside. Was he going to make the move? No. Realistically, from that position, no. He squeezed him, fair enough, but he kept squeezing. Made the contact, rear to rear tyre, and that was a puncture for Max Verstappen, and that was Max Verstappen's fault. That was Max Verstappen's fault. Do I agree with the 10-second time penalty he got in the race? Yes, I do, to a certain extent. But at the same time, I don't, because it made no difference. Because Hulkenberg was the next car 17 seconds behind. So, yeah, I do agree with the penalty, but I don't agree with it at the same time. I think he should have been given a drive-through, personally, after he'd done the pit stop, because that would have been a 20-second penalty, at least. I think that would have been fairer. Would have put him behind probably his teammate Hulkenberg and maybe K-Mag at that as well. And then if he got himself back to 5th, then fair enough. But I do think the penalty needed to be harsher than just, yeah, it's effectively nothing, this. Max will not learn, will it? And Red Bull won't learn either, because they were saying that what Lando was doing was naughty, which I do agree with. We'll get to Lando in a minute. But what Max was doing was naughty as well, and it wasn't 100% Lando's fault all the time. And the collision that happened was not Lando's fault, that was Max's. So, for Max Verstappen, it is Esteban Tuero of the week and minus 10 points. He's losing 10 points off of his championship fight in the cruel room. Fight me in the comments, see if I care. But yeah, no, genuinely, I do love you all. I know everyone's always got different opinions on things, but yeah, I'm expecting quite a lot of hate for that one. But you might like me again when I get to Lando. We'll wait and see. But yeah, for now, that is minus 10. And Esteban Tuero of the week to Max Verstappen. In 6th place, we come to Nico Hulkenberg. Oh, I needed that, and Haas needed that as well. What a fantastic weekend Nico Hulkenberg has had. Brilliant, sensational, impeccable. He's DISCO. That's it. Crazy, crazy complicated. She's oh. Well done, Nico Hulkenberg. I am buzzing. I was screaming at the telly. What a fantastic effort by Haas. My favourite team finally come good after Nico Hulkenberg secures 5 P11 finishes this season. This main race certainly more than made up for that, didn't it? Wow. P6, 8 points on the board for Nico Hulkenberg, and leapfrogging Alpine again with this result. Not just this result, but his teammate as well, who we'll come to shortly. And beating Sergio Perez on merit without any issue for either car. Drove, defended, attacked, did everything right. Strategy by Haas. Everything went perfect for him this weekend and beat Sergio Perez on merit. A Haas car beating a Red Bull on merit. Stunning effort. Stunning effort. Well done, Nico Hulkenberg. I can't sing your praises high enough. That was a great race. That was a fantastic race. Lonely in the sprint, but points weren't possible anyway, that race. I'll admit that. But yeah, apart from that, it's been an impeccable race. So Nico Hulkenberg is getting 1 extra bonus point from me. He's getting 11. He's getting 11. Well done, Nico Hulkenberg, you stunning man. Will he be regretting leaving for Sauber? I don't think so, because he's going to be picking up a fat paycheck and will be there when Audi are involved, of course. So he's going to be in for a difficult and tough 2025, but if anyone can drag that heap of shit into the points, it will be him next season. You never know, might be respectable next year as well. But for now, the glory is all about Haas and all about Nico Hulkenberg, and it's 11 points to him. 7th place, we come to Checo, Sergio Perez.
Despite only completing 1 full season of Formula 1, at least I did just that. 1 full season plodding round the back of the grid doing nothing to impress anyone. Fantastic.
And there we have it, Esteban Suero of the week, 2. 2, fucking hell, Sergio Perez, what a loser. Honestly, this is unbelievable, isn't it? I've just ran out of words, to be honest with you. I really have. I mean, his teammate, you know, goes and clatters into another driver, has to do half a lap with a puncture, get that an extra pit stop in, come out and still comes out ahead of Perez. That's how bad his weekend went. I don't know, they were calling it, he had side pod damage from the start of the race. Yeah, because you fucking lunged it up the inside of Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri, you dick. That were your own doing. I don't give a shit if you got side pod damage or not. You still got one of the best cars on the grid. Just unbelievable. So yeah, it's an of the week, and this is the 5th of the week to Sergio Perez. So yeah, unfortunately, any more silly antics or poor performances and he will be getting disqualified. There's no more chances for him. I've upped it to 5 this year from 3. Imagine if I'd have gone 3, we'd have already lost Perez, Sargeant, Bottas. I think we'd have lost Stroll as well. So yeah, it's a good job I upped it to 5, but the drivers are still doing a really good impression on me of trying to get themselves thrown out of the championship as early as possible. Round 11, and Sergio Perez is on 5 of the weeks. And on a final warning from me, Sergio Perez, another awful weekend. Oh dear. In 8th place, we come to Kevin Magnussen in the 2nd of the Haas's. What a great effort by K-Mag as well. No denying, no fault in that. That was an impeccable race by him. Yeah, finishes a couple of places behind his teammate, of course, but you can't expect 2 Haas's to beat a Red Bull, can you? Bloody hell, that'd be far too much to ask. But what a stunning effort. 12 points on the board, 4 Haas total this race, elevating themselves well above Alpine now. Great effort, great race, and both these drivers drove inside the top 10 all race long. There were P8 and P10 throughout most of it. Then the first round of pit stops came in, the P8, P9, and then we had the collision up front. It just worked out perfectly, didn't it, for them? It really did. They played a blinder. Fantastic stuff. K-Mag this weekend drove really well in the sprint as well, of course. Let's not forget that. P9 was the best he could do when the top 4 teams are ahead. He had to rely on someone having contact up front or a reliability issue. Sadly, P9 was the best he could manage there, but still a great effort after a great qualifying in that one. And in the race itself, it shows you how important qualifying is. Hulkenberg getting himself into P9 in qualifying, and Magnussen P12. That's a good effort, good effort indeed. So for Kevin Magnussen, he's getting 10 points from me, a perfect 10 for the main race itself, and he's picking up 2 additional points for the sprint format weekend, because P9, that was really the best he could do. He wasn't expected to beat the top 4 teams, and he didn't do. It was a shame that one didn't drop out for him to pick up another point for the squad, but after this Sunday performance, they're not going to be bitter about that, are they? Well done, K-Mag. 12 points to you total, 10 for the main race, 2 bonus points for the sprint. Well done. Securing 9th place, we come to Daniel Ricciardo in the RB. Visa Cash App Maxi Tampon. Don't forget your Alpha Tauri, Toro Rosso Minardi. Well done, you. Yeah, Ricciardo this weekend has done okay, hasn't it? Didn't get the car into Q2, but nonetheless drove well and got himself into the points here. The strategy by the RB squad was better than Alpine, which elevated him above the Alpines in the end. But no one had a match for the Haas cars this weekend, so P9 is a respectable effort based on where he was. Ricciardo ran the car with the upgrades still, because obviously they were a little bit lost in Spain. Wasn't quite sure what went wrong with the lack of pace from both drivers. So Ricciardo agreed to stay with the upgraded car. Tsunoda had a hybrid of the two. He had old parts on, he had new parts on, to try and understand what's going wrong or what's going right. But clearly, maybe just circuit specific with Spain, because obviously Ricciardo got a couple of points, but maybe they're thinking, yeah, we should be beating Haas though. So maybe still some questions to be answered there. But yeah, 2 points. I think that's a fair effort. I've given him 8. 8 points to Daniel Ricciardo. I think that's a fair effort from where he was this weekend. Picks up a couple of points. Gets more than Alpine. I don't think much more can be said for that, because the Haasers were in a league of their own, really. They were the 5th quickest team this weekend, and even beat a Red Bull. So yeah, well done, Daniel Ricciardo. 8 points to you. Final points paying position comes to Pierre Gasly in the first of the Alpines. Yeah, this weekend again has been solid by Alpine. They've had a couple of double point scores as the races have progressed this season. This time around just picking up 1 point instead of the 3 they've been expected these last few races. But nonetheless, still a good effort by Pierre Gasly. Qualifying was respectable again, a Q2 appearance by him. His teammate getting into Q3 though, but that's much of a muchness. He picks up the point in the end. The Alpine drivers battling and squabbling once again on track, which did cost them time against the Haasers, but the strategy of the Alpine wasn't as good as the Haas team either. So I do think that Gasly, yeah, you know, it was solid, it was decent, but it wasn't as good as Ricciardo, wasn't as good as the Haasers. So for that reason, it's 7.5 to him for Pierre Gasly. I think he's done a good job this weekend overall, picks up a good point. That's a crucial point, that. But yeah, silly shenanigans with his teammate again, which I don't like. But yeah, nonetheless, picked up a point. 7.5 to Pierre Gasly. Finishing in 11th place and outside the points, we come to Sha La La. Oh, sacre bleu. Sha La 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 La. What can be said for Charles's weekend other than it was ruined at the start, wasn't it? He was sandwiched, unfortunately. Perez stuffy up the inside. He had Oscar Piastri round his outside. He caught the back of Piastri's car and ripped his front wing off. Had to pit on lap 1. There was no safety car interventions that meant he could catch onto the back of the pack again. So the fact he finishes here P11 after 5 pit stops in the end, or was it 4? It was certainly quite a few. Yeah, he finishes P11 just outside the points. He was hunting down the final points paying position at the end there, but I think it was still something like 6 seconds come the flag, so it wasn't as if like it was imminent that another lapping had got him. But yeah, Charles Leclerc, unfortunately, this weekend, I can only score him a middle of the row 5. Treat him as a retirement, that's what I'm thinking for me personally. There wasn't anything he could do. A good recovery up the field, but without a safety car. Sadly, points were never possible due to the amount of time he lost. It all came undone at turn 1. Wasn't necessarily his fault. It was a racing incident. I know I blame Perez, but it was predominantly Perez's fault. But you've got to get your elbows out turn 1, lap 1, haven't you? And that's what Perez did. Charles Leclerc was just unfortunately piggy in the middle there. And it is a middle row 5 to Shalala. Finishing in 12th place, we come to Esti Bestie Ocon. Esti Bestie to you. Ain't like Esti Bestie Ocon. So for Esteban Ocon, what can be said for his race weekend overall? Q3 appearance, good effort. Didn't have any new tyres though, so he was at P10 and behind Nico Hulkenberg, but that's fair enough. That's fair enough for the Q3 session. Don't mind at all. All he was aiming for there was best of the rest and P9 anyway, so didn't matter. Got into Q3, that was his good effort. The race itself started well. He split the Haasers, didn't he? It was Hulkenberg 8th, Ocon 9th, Magnussen 10th, something like that anyway, and drove really, really well in that first stint. But Alpine stayed out longer than the Haasers, but not long enough to make any sort of difference in terms of tyre advantage or disadvantage come the end of the race, because they pitted him about 8 or 9 laps later than the Haasers in the first stint, but then only 3 laps later in the second. So it kind of mitigated everything, and it didn't make any sense. They got stuck and bottled up behind Lance Stroll, didn't they, and Fernando Alonso for quite a while, did the Alpines, which didn't help them either. So yeah, overall for Esteban Ocon, I've gone for 6.5 this week, and he had a good Q3 appearance, not going to lie, that was a good effort. And the race itself looked like he should have picked up a point or two, to be fair, but the Alpine strategy and getting stuck behind a couple of cars with that strategy that they were put on didn't help him. And ultimately his teammate got the point and he didn't. So there you go. 6.5 to Esti Besti. Unlucky for some P13, we come to Lance Stroll in the first of the Aston Martins. Oh dear, what the hell has happened to their pace this season? Unbelievable. Not looking like they're in contention for points at all in this race. Crazy, crazy stuff. I can't believe it. I really can't. So, yeah, unfortunately for Lance Stroll, there's not much that can be said about his race. He did put up a brave defence against cars around him, but ultimately fell short. It's just very, very difficult to understand and work out what happened, but yeah, just the Aston Martin pace, it's just not there, is it? But at least he's signed up again, hasn't he? He's signed up for another multi-year deal with his daddy's team. What a coincidence. Yeah, for Lance Stroll, it's 6 points this race for him. I don't think I can do any more or any less than that. I think that's a fair score based on what I saw of him. Even though it wasn't a lot, at least he didn't knock his wing off. He had respectable qualifying based on the pace of the car. That Aston Martin car is not a top 10 performer. And that's that. 6-2, Lance Stroll. 14th position, we come to Yuki Tsunoda in the second of the RB. So while his teammates picking up the points, Yuki Tsunoda is picking up a €40,000 fine for his inappropriate team radio message in qualifying. I won't repeat what he said, but one word was fucking and the other one began with R. Yeah, so that was unfortunate for Yuki Tsunoda. Apparently he apologised because he didn't know what he meant. Well, I'm always of the ethos, Yuki, if you don't know what it means, don't use it. Don't use it. I don't go using words I don't know because I'm like, well, I don't know what it means. Anyway, there you go. But he clearly knew the context of it because he called certain drivers a fucking So, yeah, Yuki Tsunoda this weekend. It's been a difficult one for him. As already mentioned, Ricciardo had the full upgrades package. Tsunoda had an hybrid of the two due to removing some of the new parts off of his car and putting old parts back on it to kind of understand what happened and why they were so off the pace in Spain. It looks like Ricciardo's car did have the advantage overall. Yuki Tsunoda, though, didn't do much to really impress me. So I've gone for a middle of the row 5 for Yuki Tsunoda this race. I think that's the fair score. I've not been too harsh on him because he had a different spec car to Ricciardo. But for the most part, he just wasn't on form. Apart from with his foul language. Oh dear. Middle of the row 5 to Yuki Tsunoda. Next up, we come to Alex Albon in the Williams. Another tough day at the office for Williams, isn't it? My, oh my, oh my. Yeah, just difficult. Really, really difficult. The sprint race, Albon was absolutely nowhere. Even was out-qualified by Sargeant in that aspect, but the sprint doesn't matter if you're not scoring points in my eyes, so I'm not going to take anything away from him for that. Clearly understanding the car. I mean, I think they did a different setup as well, didn't they? So he started from pit lane in that one as well. So, yeah, either way, you know, it doesn't matter. That's the sprint. That's the sprint. The main race itself, at least he's finishing ahead of some cars. But those that he finished ahead of, he's still nowhere near the points, is he? And that's very, very difficult. So, for Alex Albon, I've gone for a solid 6. Solid 6 for Alex this race around. I can't sing his praises because there's no praises to sing, but at the same time, that Williams car has really lost form, hasn't it? You know, I mean, if Aston Martin have lost form, then yeah, Williams obviously certainly have, haven't they? So it's very, very difficult. But nonetheless, Alex Albon is a solid 6 to him. I can't say anything more than that. I can't do anything more than that. There's obviously a lot more impressive performances up and down the field. But at the same time, I don't want to criticise Alex because we know it's just a tough time for Williams at the moment, isn't it? 6-2, Alex Albon. Next up, we come to Valtteri Bottas in the first of the steak kick me up the arse Saubers. Wonderful stuff. just a gentle reminder that I love heritage within Formula One, and names like Steak Kick Me Up the Arse Sauber just really bring butterflies and just put them in my stomach and in other areas as well. But yeah, it really just make me tingle when you think, oh God, it takes me back. It takes me back. Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna, Manuel Fangio, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. It really just brings it all back, doesn't it, when you mention names like Steak Kick Me Up the Arse. Stunning effort. Now, big apology for everyone here, because I've given Valtteri Bottas a Miller 05, and people think that's very generous, Josh. Why have you done that? Well, the simple answer is he was that anonymous in the race. I actually forgot to submit the scores to Dan with Valtteri Bottas on it. So then he's like, mate, I've got your scores, but I can't do the table because you've not put Bottas on. So I just put, just give him 5 then. And that's a true story. That genuinely happened. So yeah, Bottas was that anonymous this race that he actually got more points than he deserved because I forgot he existed. I think that's the first time that's ever happened on the Cruel Room, isn't it? But there you go. So it's Miller 05 to Valtteri Bottas for no other reason than I forgot about him. Finishing next up then, behind his teammate, it is Zhou Guanyu in the second of the Steak Kick Me Up the Arse Saubers. I'm getting Mika Hakkinen on the tip of my tongue with that one. What a historic, prestigious name that is. Let's not let Andretti in. No. No. We need more Steak Kick Me Up the Arses and more Visa Cash App Maxi Tampon RBs than we do an actual American sports brand. Yeah, brilliant, no worries. Anyway, Zhou Guanyu gets 2 points this weekend from me because he was pretty much dog shit. He was pretty much tumbling round at the back, bimbling and bumbling, and I remembered that he existed, which is a very big surprise by me. But yeah, Bottas was anonymous, so I forgot about him. Zhou Guanyu, the only reason why I have remembered him is because he had contact with Fernando Alonso, and that wasn't his fault. But do you want to know what the best thing is as well? I found this out, this is fucking bullshit, isn't it? But Zhou Guanyu getting rammed off by Alonso, it actually went down as a track limit infringement. And according to the own rule book of the track limits in Formula One, it is when a car has made a clear and obvious error, which is fair enough, yeah, to disobey track limits where other alternative options were available. So basically they're trying to say, well, you've extended the track a bit there to try and gain a little bit. That's a bit naughty. So they legitimately deleted that lap time for Zhou Guanyu because he got pummeled off the track by Alonso and lost a load of time. This is where track limits for me is going to start getting a bit stupid in my eyes personally. If that was his 4th offence, is he going to get a penalty for that? They need to sort that aspect of track limits out. But for the most part, I agree with him. But when I saw that, I was like, lap time, I was like, oh, fucking hell. Just stupid. Absolutely stupid. So he gets clubbed by Alonso, he gets a track limit violation for the privilege. It's 2 points to Zhou anyway. It's the only thing I can remember about his race, and that's that. So, yeah, less said the better. But Zhou Guanyu, 2 points to him. Finishing behind Zhou Guanyu, we come to Fernando Alonso, who misses out on an of the week by that much, because I've got none left again. So yeah, I don't know what can be said. There was other drivers that deserve the of the week more, which are the ones I've given it to, and some may be coming up as well, who knows. But yeah, Fernando Alonso this weekend, nowhere. And Martin Brundle made a great point. He just said he's just lost his mojo. He's just lost his mojo totally now. The fact that he's just, in interviews, he's like, yeah, it is what it is. Whereas before it was always like fire in his belly, like, come on, we can do this. And this is why he was so great last year. He had the enthusiasm, he had the passion. The start of this year, the car had clearly stepped back, but he was willing to work with the team to go forward. And he's gone backwards. So I can understand why he's defeatist, but this race weekend overall was poor by him. Punted Zhou off, which was a 10-second time penalty, which was fair enough. It was an obvious error. He hit him, and that's that. So yeah, for Fernando Alonso, he's going to get 1 point, 1 lucky point, and he's going to thank me for it. Because this was a very out-of-character race weekend by Fernando Alonso. Even in the sprint, was outraced by Stroll. Yeah, very, very poor weekend. I hope he books his ideas up for Silverstone. But as of right now, that was a very poor race. 1 point to Fernando Alonso. Next up, 19th place and last of the runners, we come to Logan Sargeant.
Hey, you've been disqualified, you bastard!
And there we have it, disqualification for Logan Sargeant. Esteban Tuero has done his duty and delivered Logan Sargeant and the Cruel Room the first disqualification of the season. yeah, he's been poodling around at the back far too long, and you could say, well, you know, he had to pit for a front wing like Charles Leclerc did. I don't care. He was 40-odd seconds behind the next car. I think he finished like 30-odd seconds behind Alonso. And Alonso had a 10-second time penalty added to his pit stop. So I'm not falling for any of that crap. Unfortunately, Logan Sargeant needs to go. He needs to go. The only thing we saw of him that was mildly impressive was the sprint qualifying. But again, that's what a Williams should be doing. It is a Q2 car. The race itself was absolutely nil and void. He was crap in qualifying when it mattered in the main race and bimbled around at the back for the rest of the race itself. Surprised they didn't bother retire him, to be honest, and just park it up. But yeah, there you go. Logan Sargeant, yet another piss poor weekend by him. And he is disqualified, so we don't want to talk about him anymore this season. The first disqualification comes just 11 rounds in. That is poor. That is very, very poor. This has been a very bad season and a very bad start by Logan Sargeant, and I can't see it getting any better. Logan Sargeant is disqualified on the Cruel Room. And last but by no means least, we come to Lando Norris.
Did you know there were doubts as to whether I'd even qualify for a super licence? Martin Brundle labelled me as scary, and it annoys him that I was even considered for a seat. Well, Martin, I did get my super licence and I did a respectable job. How'd you like them apples, sunshine? Ha!
And there we have it, Esteban Swearer of the week to Lando Norris, and minus 10 points off of his Cruel Room standings as well. He's getting the same treatment as Max Verstappen because they both drove like tools, didn't they? Unbelievable stuff. Lando Norris, yeah, he's never going to be champion driving like this, is he? It's a shame to say, but he's been the bridesmaid on more occasions than he deserved to be because of his own silly, lack of willingness to race and go wheel to wheel. And, Imola was an opportunity. Of course, last time out was an opportunity in Spain, but it just doesn't come right, does it? This time around, Max has the slow pit stop, gets frustrated by that, locks up and goes wide on his outlap, closes right into within DRS. And then what does he do? He just starts fucking ridiculous dive bombs that are never going to come off. Like, and I know, there's only Dave Hook dive bombs like that in the ERL leagues, and that's online and virtual. But maybe these drivers are just so hooked up and caught up with their virtual lives now that they think that what they do in the virtual world can happen and be real in the real life, because Max Verstappen does all the esports shit as well, doesn't he? Probably thinks he can get away with it on a computer, he can get away with it in real life. Lando Norris, disgusting. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. Both were to blame. It was needless. It was silly. There was diving it up the inside when it didn't need to be. There was him moaning over the radio for moves that were acceptable by Max's standards. I'm not going to deny that Max was always wrong. There were some moments there where Max defended quite legitimately, and Lando was on the radio moaning. He has to do that. He has to give him the position. He has to do other. And, just shut up whinging. He just stuffs it up the inside and just expects a car to vanish. Idiotic. The contact in the end was Max's fault, but Lando had built up to that. Lando had antagonised Max to that standard, and Max is a professional driver that shouldn't have got to that level. It shouldn't have raised. There shouldn't have been a boiling point within them. They should have both remained calm and tried to race as cleanly as possible. Lando was being erratic. Max should have known that and just thought, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but I'm not going to be responsible for it. But he got arsey, he got irate, and then he came over on Lando and rear-to-rear wheel contact, punctures for the pair of them. Max Verstappen recovered to finish P5. Lando Norris ruined all his suspension. Again, frustration, driving too fast with a puncture, and it went from looking reasonably intact, the tyre, certainly looked more intact than Max's, but then in sheer frustration drove faster to try and still beat Max, even when they both got punctures, and ripped his rear tyre to shreds, which ripped the whole floor and took the suspension to pieces. He just destroyed his car in frustration at having a puncture rather than trying to drive back slowly and recover it safely so he can still get points. Erratic, immature, and it's a big, big concern for me now going into this because, Max Verstappen doesn't learn. You know, we've known that for years, that Max has done that. It's weird to see it creep back in after years of being away. We've not really seen that type of Max since 2018 at the very latest, really, with the weaving, under braking and moving and doing, you know, reasonably dodgy moves. You know, you could say 2021 in some aspects with the fight for Hamilton, but again, that was different circumstances. That was actually for a championship. You know, we've not really seen that the likes of that Max for a number of years. So the fact it's returned maybe shows that he is under pressure and is feeling like Lando could be the next big thing and could be the one that takes the crown off him. So he must defend at all efforts. But then at the same time, he must think, well, I've got a massive cushion in the championship. I'll just take second then. You know, again, winning attitude, isn't it? I understand that. And for Lando Norris, once again, bottled it. Absolute bottle job. I can't say fairer than that. Lando Norris has been a bottle job this season. You look at it on the whole and you think, God, that's really good. But it's a case of what could have been. It could have been 4 wins instead of 1. It should have been a win here this weekend had he just thought with his fucking head. Because he got 5 second time penalty for track limits because he kept driving here, there and everywhere by where he should do because he was that desperate to lunge up the inside of Max. It was all his own doing, I'm afraid. Lando antagonised a difficult situation and Max Verstappen bit and they both suffered the consequence. Esteban Suero of the week and minus 10 points to Lando Norris. So then guys, those were the runners and riders of the Austrian Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The updated standings with the scores I've just awarded are on the screen now for you. And look who's leading! Look who's leading, it's Nico Hulkenberg. Unbelievable stuff. Charles Leclerc up there, Carlos Sainz up there as well. But I'm afraid to say that both Max and Lando deserve to suffer heavily for what their stupid antics were in the race. Let me know down below if you disagree with me or not on that. But I think anyone that fully blames one driver or the other is a little bit silly in my opinion. But again, I respect all opinions, but from me personally, both were to blame. Both were to blame and both deserve to be punished. Let's have a look at the constructor standings then. They're on the screen as well for you. And as you've noticed, there have been some minus points. That's right. I have deducted 10 points from Alpine because of their poor performances this year. In general, I don't think they deserve to be as high up the standings as they are. There's another 10 points off for the Sauber Kick Me Up the Arse stakes, mainly for the fact that they were that lonely I forgot Bottas existed. That's ridiculous. So they're on minus 20 points off of their tally now. And I have minus 5 points off of Williams, despite the fact they're already at the back of the pack. I've taken 5 points off of Williams because it's just been a poor performance by them in Alex's car. That's why I didn't deduct 10, because I think Sargeant's a waste of space anyway. But yeah, minus 5 to Williams as well, so that drops them even further behind the 9th in the standings car of the Kick Me Up the Arses. A massive thanks as always goes out to Dan Bartlett, formerly of Mushy Gaming, for providing me with the scoreboard that you saw on your screen, for the driver icons in the corner, and for the intro as well. Thanks so much, buddy. Really appreciate all you do. And who can forget, of course, F1 Games PlayStation, Mr. Dave, for providing me with the of the weeks that you don't know, but you know you're going to love them, don't you? There's a different one every week this year, all 90s themed, of course. And this one, Esteban Tuero, was very, very fitting to award the first disqualification of the season. Thank you all so much for watching, guys. Thank you for the continued love and support with the series. I look forward to seeing you all again next Tuesday, 6 PM for the Silverstone Grand Prix, the last race within the triple header. And if you're Formula E inclined, and if you like your Formula E stuff, the Cruel Corner coming out tomorrow, episode 1 for the Portland E-Prix, round number 13, and on Thursday again, 6 PM for round number 14, also for the Portland E-Prix. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. And as always, much love.